Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session in which we will talk about how to begin your machine learning journey using Amazon SageMaker Studio Lab, and then seamlessly graduate to building and deploying machine learning models at scale on Amazon SageMaker. My name is Vadim Omelchenko, and I am a Senior AI/ML Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. So Amazon SageMaker Studio Lab is a free development environment for anyone to learn and experiment with machine learning. All you need to get started is a valid email address. You don't need to configure infrastructure or manage identity and access or even sign up for an AWS account. Studio Lab environment comes with 15 gigabytes of persistent storage, a choice of CPU or GPU compute, built-in integration with GitHub, and few options to integrate with Amazon SageMaker, which we will discuss later today as well. So who are the main users of SageMaker Studio Lab? Obviously, this is a service which can be used by anybody in any field or vertical. On this slide, for example, you can see just a few examples of personas who's been active on the platform since we introduced it. In academia, for instance, it is used by students to develop skills necessary for careers in data science and machine learning. Another category are developers. Many of them use Studio Lab to expand their technical skills or maybe develop other aspects of their careers. And Studio Lab is also great for data scientists who want to experiment first and then promote their workloads into production later. This diagram here shows how Studio Lab environments operate. As users sign in at studiolab.sagemaker.aws, they select the type of session they would like to use, whether it's CPU-powered or GPU-powered. There is a limitation. There is a 12 hours limit on CPU sessions and 4 hours on GPUs. And then they begin using the environment. Viewing, editing Jupyter notebooks, pushing, pulling to from GitHub, deploying additional packages, managing their environments. And at the end of the session, the work can be saved to the persistent storage attached to the project so that it can be resumed later, the same day if you still have session time left, or the following day. And also, as I mentioned earlier, there are a couple of options to integrate your environment with Amazon SageMaker for production type of workloads. If you're new to Studio Lab, the first step for you will be to request your own Studio Lab account. As you can see on the screenshot, the only required field is an email address. Optionally, you can populate your first, last names, country of residency. The approval for your account will take a couple of business days on AWS side. However, as you may notice at the very bottom, there is a referral code, a field for referral code. And if you have a referral code, you can enter it here, and the approval will be automatic and near instant. Once your access has been approved, or once you logged in to SageMaker Studio Lab, you will first find yourself on the project page. This is where you will manage your environment. As you can see at the top here, you can make your selection of CPUs or GPUs. You can monitor how much runtime you have left for your session if you've already used it before today. On this page at the bottom, you will also often find helpful links to useful resources, demos, tutorials. And as you click the Start Runtime button, it'll take few seconds to initialize your environment, and then you click Open Project, and that will take you to the notebook environment itself. And as you can see, Jupyter Lab is powering Studio Lab environments. It also offers you terminal access. You have access to Git and GitHub. We already went over the hardware options, CPU, GPU, 15 gigabytes of storage. Terminal access can be used for environment customizations. So you can add, delete, view your Conda environments, create new ones. And GitHub is useful to keep your code decoupled from the runtime environment. Each Studio Lab environment runs on a base image, which includes all the packages and utilities necessary to support variety of basic machine learning projects. But as I mentioned earlier, you can customize your environment using pip, Conda, or Mamba. Many of you probably familiar by now with AWS service called Amazon SageMaker and Amazon SageMaker Studio. So how does Studio Lab compare to SageMaker and SageMaker Studio? On the left-hand side here, we have the SageMaker Studio Lab, and on the right-hand side is Amazon SageMaker Studio. And if you look at the Studio, you can tell that it offers a lot of features that are necessary for production type of environments. Ability to run processing and training jobs, deploy and execute pipelines, support for model monitoring, explainability. You can launch automatic hyperparameter tuning. There is a number of inference options that are available. Also, Studio, unlike Studio Lab, has no limitations on the types of hardware you want to run, number of CPUs, GPUs, amount of memory and storage you need to use. Also, there are no limits on session time in Amazon SageMaker. And both of them, SageMaker Studio Lab and SageMaker Studio, are powered by Jupyter Lab. Therefore, SageMaker Studio and services are natural next step when you need to scale. So how do you bring your Studio Lab workload into SageMaker Studio for scaling? What's the easiest path? As it turns out, the easiest way to run any project developed in Studio Lab on SageMaker is by scheduling a notebook job. This job will run an AWS account. So, of course, you will first need to create your AWS account. Once created, there are a few steps that you need to take in order to connect the Studio Lab to the AWS account. But once that's done, scheduling your notebook to run on AWS SageMaker is a matter of just right-clicking on your notebook and selecting schedule, picking the schedule you want, and clicking create. This approach will let you easily scale your machine learning experiments with bigger data sets and more powerful instances. And you don't need to learn SageMaker operations, and you don't need to change the code, actually. It will run as is. Obviously, you need to make provisions for your model artifacts and data to be available in your AWS environment as well. And one of the options to do that is by leveraging S3 storage. Of course, you can also migrate your entire Studio Lab environment to SageMaker Studio. And there are 4 easy steps to do that. 2 of them you would execute on Studio Lab side, the steps 1 and 2, and then 2 on the SageMaker Studio side. Step 1, in Studio Lab, you would export your Conda environment. Step 2, you will push your artifacts like code or data to either GitHub or S3. Then you would hop over to AWS account And from there, in Studio, you would bring in your artifacts, your code. You can git clone GitHub or copy dataset from S3. And then you would have to install the Conda environment that you exported from Studio Lab. The link at the bottom of the page points to a documentation page, which actually will guide you through this process in details with examples of commands that you need to run. So how do you get started with SageMaker Studio Lab? Simply go to studiolab.sagemaker.aws, apply for a new account if you don't have one, sign in into your account if you already have one, and start coding. The second link here is a reference to additional resources, helpful resources that you will find on Studio Lab's homepage. And there is a number of blog posts, videos, tutorials, and code examples that you can use to get started quicker. And now we'll answer any questions you might have.